All right, bang, bang. Today is Thursday. It is June 2nd. Welcome to the Dog Walk presented by Barstool Sports. So I've talked on here a couple times about some Chicago-specific episodes. This is going to be pretty much deep into it right here. I'm here with Dante, and I'm also here with Jeremy Foster, the CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Metro Chicago, an organization that Dante has talked about pretty beautifully on Barstool so far. And so Jeremy, we want to have you on. Welcome. And just kind of talk about the organization and something that I really believe in as well, that I'm kind of excited to let more people know about from your end and everything. So welcome.
Well, thank you, Eddie, and good to see you again. We met each other a few years back when you yourself were actually throwing your hat in the ring to be a big brother, so I appreciate the opportunity. And, of course, Dante, who is a big brother. Our bigs are some of the most incredible human beings, which you'll find out, and you probably saw in the piece that Dante wrote. But, happy to be here, talk about the organization, what's happening in our neighborhoods throughout Chicago that's positive, and also a call to action where people can lean in, join the organization, because we have thousands of children waiting for more big brothers in particular throughout our neighborhoods and communities.
Hey guys, before we get into it, Jeremy, though, I do want to talk about Chicagoland Chevy dealers. The Chicagoland Chevy dealers have a big summer ahead. The starting lineup is here, and it's the summer of SUVs. The all-new Equinox, Blazer, Trailblazer, and Trax can all be customized to fit your needs. It's simple. Just place your order at your local Chevy dealer. What's great about them, at ChevyDriveChicago.com, you could type in your zip code, and it'll show you exactly where you need to go, where your closest dealer is. Nobody wants to waste their time going to a dealer that's too far or whatever it is. So you want to make sure you type in that zip code and you're going to the one that's closest, most convenient to you, that you know you'll get some good care from, because Chevy just provides that for you. So head to ChevyDriveChicago.com to pick out your future Chevy and to find out where your local dealer is today, like I said. And also make sure you're going to them for simple fixes on your problems. It's road trip season. Go get the tires rotated, make sure the brakes are looking nice, and get the oil changed and whatnot. So one more time, ChevyDriveChicago.com to pick out your future Chevy and figure out where your dealer is located today. All right, let's get into the episode here. Yeah, I mean, it's so important. So many people now, they just kind of want to, complain about the issues on Twitter and whatnot. And that's why it's important to, get places where you could make action happen. So I'm happy to do this. Dante, how long have you been involved in everything?
Anytime I get asked a question about dates or timelines, I'm so bad because everything's just a blur to me. But I think, what did we say, 3 years?
Yep.
Yeah, 3 years now with Trey, and it's been
so Trey is your big brother.
You're
a big brother, he's your little. Sorry.
Yeah, he's my little, but he's bigger than I am, so it's kind of weird saying that. But yeah, and for those who haven't read what I wrote, kind of spelled out the whole process, and I've talked to Jeremy about it a bunch, and I don't think I'm unique in any way in terms of going through it. It's intimidating. It's not easy. It's basically you're meeting this stranger and trying to hang out with them and take them under your wing and make a friend. And it's not easy making friends with someone who you have a big age gap with and, grew up totally different situation, different time, different place. But once you get over those first few bumps and, you kind of break through, you can see almost immediately the positive effects. And it's, honestly, I wrote this too. It's probably the thing that I'm most proud about that I've ever done, and it's not anything earth-shattering or life-changing or anything like that. But it's something anybody out there listening can do.
Mm-hmm. And there's a couple ways to do it, right, Jeremy? I believe when I kind of went through the process, there's site-based, and then there's what's the other way to put it?
Community-based. First off,
I thought.
Fantastic memory of 3 to 4 years ago
when
we first met,
pre-pandemic.
So great memory of the Big Brothers Big Sisters and lingo. But yeah, there's a couple of ways to be a big. So first, we call all the adult mentors bigs, whether you're a big brother or big sister. So they're all known as bigs. And the site program, which you referenced, it's more of a pre-scheduled, pre-planned, and a group experience. So you're always matched one-on-one with the same little. but you do it on a set date and time at a physical location such as a school, community center. When people were back in offices, many took place in corporate offices where you could be a big on campus. We brought the kids to you. So that's site-based, pre-planned, structured. Community-based is the 1904 model. It started in 1904 where you pick up your little and you have immense flexibility. Nights, weekends, you have more engagement with the parent or caretaker. That's what Dante is a community-based big brother, and so that's the traditional model. Lots of flexibility. While they are different experiences, the impact is the same. You continue to show up, show this young person that there's somebody outside in addition to their family that cares about them. They're in their corner. Dante had mentioned something, and a lot of bigs say this because this is why they're bigs. They're very selfless. So they'll minimize the impact and who they are as people, but this is life-changing. And I bet you Dante will tell you his life has been changed for the better as being a big. He has a different perspective. But it is certainly life-changing for the young person. No,
you say that too. They're both positive interactions for sure, and you're helping the child regardless if you do community or site-based. But isn't there a little something to community-based because you as a big you'll be able to kind of see things first person?
Yeah, it does ground you. The community-based does, and for the volunteer in particular. You see and experience as much as you can of what your little sees and experiences in their neighborhood, in their school. That is something that is different that you just cannot replicate. And by going into different neighborhoods and just kind of seeing and putting in context a lot of the stuff you may hear or read on TV, that does change your perspective. It certainly does, right? Because you're experiencing.
I could not agree more. It's one thing to sit here and watch the news and see these horrific things on Twitter and kind of Monday morning quarterback from the press box or the expensive seats. It's another thing to actually talk with somebody who that's their life, that's like their neighborhood where this stuff happens. Those are like their friends. Those are their friends' family. I mean, it's like totally changes your perspective. And I think the reason that I became so interested in doing it, I mean, there were a bunch of reasons, but one of the main things was this is what I encourage a lot of people who, are always bitching on social media or sending stuff to me like, can you believe this? Can you believe this? It's like, okay, but like, what are you going to do to help be a solution? Everybody can complain. Everybody can point out problems. Everybody can bitch and moan. But what are you going to do to step up and do your part to fix this? And I can't think of a better way for one person to make a difference than, obviously I don't have $150 million like Jeff Bezos' ex-wife to, donate to the program, which she did, and it was unbelievable and awesome. Was it $150 million?
$122 million. Although it is fantastic, and we're celebrating that. I want to remind folks, Chicago was not on there, and it's not a shame to that gift, but just understand the work we have ahead of us. But no, that was transformational, very impactful for Big Brothers Big Sisters overall. But Chicago was not on there, but we're as you know, Dante and Eddie,
I might have to reach out to her.
Yeah, we don't stop though. We have plenty of people here in Chicago who do lean in, can lean in, and there's opportunities for folks to do that.
And talk a little bit more about where that money goes, because I know going firsthand and seeing the background checks and everything, it comes to you very quickly. But everyone's always like, "Where's that money going? 122? That sounds like so much." Can you go into that where exactly like money is spread and what that, if you're allowed to? I believe it's not.
I mean, I've seen like firsthand. You guys are very lean. Like you guys are. Like there's not a huge corporate office. There's not a huge staff. I mean, there's like a handful of you guys that wear a ton of different hats, are super involved. Your turnover has been, I feel really bad. You guys have had constant turnover, especially through COVID. I've had 10 different match support specialists. So, I mean, I know you guys are one of those organizations that people can donate to and not have to worry about, pigs getting fat and money not getting to where it needs to go.
That's a fantastic question. We don't get that often, or I don't get a chance to explain that on a platform often of, what happens because we're so volunteer driven. And I guess that is the point. That's where the vast majority of the philanthropic resources go. So I want you to think of two things. We need two things. We need philanthropic capital and human capital. We need the philanthropic capital to recruit, screen, train, make that match, and support that human capital that we need, which are the bigs. So that's where the investments go. You need people up front on the pavement, right, in the neighborhoods, recruiting more Dantes of the world, working with the families. We work intimately with the families. So as much as we go through a process with bigs to make sure you're an appropriate individual to be with a child, we do the same thing with a family. Make sure the child really wants to be in the program, the family can be in the program as well. And so that's where the resources goes to invest in the human capital for us to acquire more bigs, screen them, train them appropriately. You know that. You get a lot of training to be a big too. So that's where that goes.
Yeah. No, and I think so people know too, the community and site-based. Like that's what I did. I did the site-based. And essentially it's just a night I would go to Forest Park on Wednesday nights, and it's like 7 to 9 or whatever, and you do arts and crafts and an assortment of things, and then it's at 9 o'clock you say goodbye and you see him next week.
That's exactly right.
So, and then community-based, what Dante does, he will be going to an underprivileged neighborhood, right? And he will be going to the house and, whether it be after school, going to Chili's to get fajitas or whatever, or going to, the Bears game, he's doing something out and about with his little, and that's monthly or twice a month, or it's up to the...
Yeah, so regardless of which program you're in, the expectation is that you're going to volunteer for 12 months, or you're committing 12 months, because that consistency means reliability to that young person. And all of this is based in 100 plus years of research. That's the beautiful thing about Big Brothers Big Sisters. So we ask for a year commitment, and then the cadence is a couple times a month, a few hours each time. So it could be 2, could be 4. And that is the biggest hurdle, frankly. We hear it from all bigs. The two most common things I hear, and I'm married to a big, 3, my wife is a 3+ year big sister. We've raised our boys. We got 3 boys, twins that are 22. My youngest is going to be 20. So I intimately know, what a big goes through. And the number one thing before becoming a big, it's, I just don't have the time.
Yeah.
The number one thing I hear after someone becomes a big, man, it's not that much time.
No.
Right? So because it's what you would normally do, you're adding this young person in, and then you're experiencing things that they want to do. And so that's the biggest hurdle, is the concept of time and what it actually is. And when you step back and think of it, it really isn't once you get in, because it's not the big things always. If you're going to run to the store, go pick up your little. We hear it all the time. It's the conversations in the car, the stuff you're talking about. It doesn't always have to be the Bears games, the Cubs games, the Bulls games, which we do, and we provide them.
Yeah.
We have great partnerships, so we try to, tee up a lot of these opportunities, but it's just those regular things you do to have a positive impact on this young person.
It's crazy how little things that you totally just take for granted it's literally eye-opening for these kids, at least in my experience. And it pisses me off because, I have all these friends that I've tried to get involved, and, like Jeremy said, everyone's too busy. I don't have time for this. I don't have time for this. It's like, I'm one of the busiest people I know. I'm not trying to kiss my own ass, but if I can make time twice a month for his kids, just like any other responsibility, and it starts out as a responsibility, but it legitimately turns into, it's one of the most rewarding things that you get so much satisfaction and fulfillment from, that you want to make time for this kid. And we've developed our relationship to the point where he's a huge Warriors fan. I'm obviously, from Boston, and I mean, we're texting, he's more fun to text about these basketball games than my buddies or like you guys, no offense, like
Thanks,
the shit
Trey.
talking and like that back and forth. And he's obviously from this other generation. He's introduced me to this whole like world that I felt so old and out of touch when I first started hanging out with him. I didn't know shit about TikTok or, you know, half these rappers that are out now and all this stuff. And like, he's clued me into all this stuff. And now I actually know and get it. And I'm back to feeling like young again, like I always have. So
Yeah.
it's been great.
Hey guys, let's take another break here because I want to talk about the Game Time app. The Game Time app is the exclusive ticketing partner of Barstool Sports. Game Time, it's a ticketing app that makes it easier than ever to score last-minute deals on tickets to sports, concerts, and shows, and they guarantee the lowest price. They cracked the code on how to secure last-minute tickets, and it's possible with the Game Time app. The biggest last-minute price drops can be found on seats you thought you could never buy. I've used it many times. It's super easy. It's super seamless. One tap, you're good to go. You don't got to worry about getting in line and being like, oh, I need a printer. You could send them all mobilely, which is very important because, you know, when you're in that situation, you're trying to hunt down a FedEx or use somebody's printer in Wrigleyville because you need to get it printed out. You don't have to worry about that with the Game Time app. I've used it at Madison Square Garden for the Game 7 with the Rangers and the Penguins. I've used it for Wrigley right here. It's super easy. It's super seamless. So make sure you're checking out the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app. Go to the account tab to create a login and redeem code DOGWALK for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Wherever you go this season, you know, concert, comedians, whatever it is, just make sure you're checking out the Game Time app. All right, let's hop back into the episode. And I think, too, Jeremy, like, knowing that there's options, and that's what, you know, if you take something for this, like, consider it, please, like, you know, give your time. And I say that, too, as someone who needs to get back involved. I stopped because I lost my little, he left the program, or I forget exactly what happened.
Yeah, he moved.
Yeah, he moved. And I thought I was going to move to New York at that point for this job. So and I just, for no reason in particular besides like, I just need to get back into it. But it really is something to let people know where it's like, because let's be frank, some people might be like, oh, well, I might be nervous to go into this community or that community. Knowing that there's a site where you can go to every week, that's paying it forward right there. Like it doesn't have to be one way or the other. There's so many options that you guys provide that I think just is really, I want to make sure people know that there's multiple ways to do it.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, there's something for everybody. That's the point here, and you can lean in whichever way best suits you and where you're at in your life. If you have kids, depending on what your work week, you know, your days look like. You know, the other thing too is let's be real, right? In this hybrid environment, I'd make the case people have a lot more time on their hands.
Sure.
Right? You're not on the road nearly as much, come into the office, and that should be a blessing for Big Brothers Big Sisters because you can be a mentor where you are. So if you're not coming into the office all the time and that's what you're predicating, okay, I'm going to be matched with a little closer where I work. It's closer to where you live now. So there's opportunities, I think, all over, as you had mentioned. The one thing I do want to mention, right, is we just got to have a level of realism, too, is we can't always pay attention to the stuff we see here and on the news. It scares people from going into the neighborhood.
Yep.
I will tell you, it's not nearly as what it feels like listening to this stuff. You know, we're in there, we go in there every day. You have teachers that go in every day that live in different communities too that go in there. And so the last thing we can afford to do is stay away. We have to be in the neighborhoods, in the communities. And I know it's easy for me to say, you know, and some will say, oh, you're just ignoring what's happening out there. It's not to the level what I think the news can sometimes make it seem like. It's every day, it's a war zone every day. The reality is that's not true.
I think it's the other way around. I think if you are purposely avoiding those places, I think that's ignoring what's going on.
Bingo.
So
but you're right. The hysteria of seeing something in print in a Facebook group that people just post and it's like, hey, I just heard this, it's really going off the rails, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'd say think of all the amount of times positive things and just regular things happen that never get so it's overwhelmingly the majority positive good things happen, but I understand it though. You know, people now consume how they consume content, as you guys know, right, through Barstool. They consume it in a certain way, and most of it, good or bad, tends to stay in that negative lane. And it does, that's the last thing you can do, is having positive, caring folks that live in or near the neighborhoods or outside continuing to come in. That's the only way you change this. Mm-hmm. Right? The more you stay away, the worse, the more the negative influences get a hold onto the neighborhoods. It's proven over time.
It blows my mind still to this day, seeing just how much this kid, knowing people outside his small little circle like care about him. And he's told me, it's been like, breaks my heart, but it's like, it means so much to these people, these kids, to know that somebody believes in them, because not a lot of them have great role models to look up to or to aspire to. None of them have, example setters, and not a lot of them have people ever telling them like, good job, I'm proud of you, good job on this. It's always negative reinforcement. There's never any positive reinforcement. So like you can literally see the transformation over time, not just bringing them places that, they'd never go, or, taking them downtown. It's like this whole new world. They can't believe that there's stuff outside their neighborhood. And like the site-based stuff that, you were doing, Ed, like, people that grew up in suburbs and, played after school with their friends every day in someone's backyard, like, they're like, what, who the hell cares about getting together once a month and, playing flag football? That is the highlight of some of these kids' like years. Yeah. It's like they have no front yard. They can't go outside because it's so dangerous. Like they literally go to school, to their house, and they're playing video games until they go to bed, and then they wake up and do the same thing every day. It's like, what'd you do this weekend? It's like the weekend's the same as the week. It's just you don't go to school, you don't see your friends. I mean, it's heartbreaking, and it explains so much about how we are where we're at and where we're at. I mean, we could do a whole episode just on the Chicago public school system and all that, but I cannot recommend enough people getting involved. That piece that I wrote, I got so much positive feedback. It was like, I mean, I was crying reading some of these emails from these people, and lots of like people that were bigs and graduated and now have families of their own and are, like, I couldn't agree more. How, keep spreading the word. People that lived across seas, like some guy from Ireland wrote and was like, we don't have a program like this, but I'm going to find something through my church. Is there any way I can help out there in Chicago? Like, I see how bad everything is. This seems like one of the few bright spots. And I told him, I was like, if you can't donate your time, like, you can donate your money. Like, go to the website, make a donation, help people get out. I mean, the program also is constantly like emailing bigs like, hey, if anyone wants to go to the Cubs game this weekend, we have, tickets for you and your little. You can claim them here. I know corporations step up and make donations all the time. Like, there's other ways you can get involved rather than just volunteering. Like, for business owners out there listening, like, what can they do? Yeah,
it's what I'd mentioned, right? Two needs. It's pretty simple: philanthropic capital, human capital. And it doesn't have to be exclusive. It can be both and many do both and. They'll contribute philanthropically, and then they get the employees involved. At the end of the day, everything you do with Big Brothers Big Sisters is for the recruitment of, the screening and training of, the matchmaking of, and the ongoing support with this dedicated, caring adult to this child who has all the potential already inside of them. And that's the other thing I want to address here. This is not a deficit-based, or there's nothing wrong with the children we serve, and sometimes people come into that, I'm going to fix somebody. No. Every child already has the potential inside of them. With that consistent encouragement, somebody in addition to their family, because we partner with some of the greatest people outside of being big, which is the parent caretaker. They come to us and say, I want you to partner and be a part of my child's life. So they have that. There's a natural mentoring ecosystem that it is in every community, but in some it gets fractured, right? And so I think about the story you told. You had that, even though maybe it wasn't within the media, you had 3 gentlemen, right, that were influenced. That's an ecosystem. Mm-hmm. But it gets fractured depending on where you live, whether you're in an urban, suburban environment, like divorce, other things can lead to that. And the point is we can't just ignore it. You can lean in, as a business owner, as a company, as an individual, you can do something with your time, your treasure, both or do what we're doing today. Let people know, follow it on social media, share these stories, because there is a lot of good. We have thousands of bigs and littles out there. But the reality is we need more.
And it's so in depth too. Like, it's not just volunteer 1,456 with, attendee 1,456. You go through personality tests, and there's a whole bunch of, you have a whole system in place, I should say, to kind of make the match happen, right?
Yeah, it's really predicated on personality and preference, right? We're not going to match, as one of our staff said, is we're not going to match a sleeper, with somebody that's active. It's a nice way to say lazy. But yeah, we look at those things, right? It's somebody who, and you have some that are introverted, love computers and all that, and they're not really active. That's a good match. So, we go through all of those things with the volunteer, child and family, just to make sure there's enough commonality in personalities and preferences to make the right match. And like I said, we don't bat 1,000, but we'd be in the Hall of Fame with the process and how much it actually works. And you see it, and it's like any relationship. I like Dante because he's very real about it. We don't like to say everything, you meet, it's fireworks. It's like any relationship. When you first meet somebody, there's that getting to know you period. But once you do, I will tell you, it is the most incredible thing you will do in your life, is having this kid now that looks to you as really an extension of a family member. And some of the texts we've exchanged, that's what I love, is I feed off those stories when bigs share them with those milestone moments where it keeps reinforcing. Wow, and Dante, that's what I love, is it truly isn't about the big, and the big will say that to you, even though they are so critical. They just love what's happening for their little and are just as excited as their parent or guardian is when they, get that test score, they get into a school, in your case, tried out for the football team. I can't imagine that proud moment. I know it being a father, but, being a big and investing in this young person, what that moment was like for you. And that's what we want. We want people to experience that, because it is transformational for you as the big as much as it is for the young person, even though, I don't want to make any bones about it. We are here for the children. But you do receive as much as you put into it.
And you said numbers, Jeremy. Can you get into that a little bit? Where are we at with volunteers as opposed to?
Yeah, that's always the mismatch, whether it's here in Chicago, which, by the way, we're Chicago proper, but we're 4 counties. So it's all of Cook, Lake in Illinois, DuPage in Illinois, and Lake County, Northwest Indiana. So we have children waiting all over that footprint. Right now, the active, I put that in quotations, it's because the kids we have through the process so far is north of 400. The reality is there's, if we go out there, we know the data, right? It's in the thousands. So there's always that mismatch of more littles, and part of that is because we've got to do more things like this. We've got to be visible every day to let people know the opportunity they have to be a part of the solution. As you'd mentioned, there are certain things that are bigger systemic things that need to change, but this is the one thing you can do, is show up for a kid, be consistent. And I know we can do that. There's 1 million millennial males alone in Cook County. Right? We need a 0.1% of that.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? So it's there. It's just we have to just keep letting people know the opportunity, that it isn't, while there is a process to it, right? Just like anything that's worthwhile in life, it's going to have a little process to it. But once you get through it, you won't regret doing this.
Totally. And I think, like you said, your blog, you have that realization where, like that, Trey, he probably would have never went to Auchevelle, and like that's so for granted, where it's like, I'll just might have to wait in a line a little bit, but I could go, so just giving people these experiences that they, probably never would have had is just meaningful. And I think one thing that stuck out to me too is like, Also, if you're going to do it, you have to be pretty committed, right? Because once you match, and that's what kind of got me super nervous to do it. I could say someone who tried to volunteer for the program is I was like, I don't want to move and then form this relationship with someone, and then it's broken, you know? So I know that's super important too, where you got to be into it, right, Jeremy? Like, this is not something where you couldn't show up half the time.
Yeah, it's a commitment for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we have a big here can tell you all about that. And yeah, this is not show up one time, shoot hoops. We people see those commercials and they see it, and so we'll get some of those calls. Hey, I just want to hang out with the kid one time. We're like, no, those are important things to do. You should do it. Mm-hmm. That's not this. This is you continuing to show up. I mentioned it earlier. Consistency equals reliability equals trust. That's what a young person needs. Once they see that, confidence, it turns on, right? And we hear it all the time too. That's the beauty of having the match support specialist there is you may not hear anything for months. And you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know. Like, is this working, man? You know, like, oh, I'm out of touch. I don't know. But they're telling the match support specialist, I love that. I love everything Dante. So that's
how my situation was. The first few times we hung out, I was like, man, what did I get myself into? Like, pulling teeth to get one-word answers out of this kid. And we had our follow-up call, and I told, it was Natalie at the time, I was like, I think this kid thinks I'm the biggest square ever. Like, he seemed miserable. Like, he couldn't wait to get out of the car and get home. She was like, no, he told his mom he had the best time ever and can't wait to like hang out again. I was just like, what? So it's definitely an experience. And when you're going through the screenings and the trainings and all that, I mean, anyone with a brain can figure out, like, you got to make sure you weed out like the weirdos and stuff and all that. But it's also, you learn they're doing it because they want to make sure you're for real and you're dependable and the commitment, because the last thing you want to do to these kids is be another person that, walks out on them or they can't depend on. I mean, that's just got to be like absolutely crushing for them. So the process makes sense. The whole program, again, to get back to what I was saying earlier, if you're one of those people that loves Chicago and is crushed seeing what's happened to it the last few years, like I am, this is the fastest, quickest, not quickest because it's a process, but most instantaneous thing you can do to have a positive impact on this city is volunteer your time. Because it's a spiderweb effect. You impact one person's life and show these kids that, there's something outside of their narrow, view of the world for them, and that they're just as talented, just as smart, just as funny as anyone else from outside their neighborhood, and they're just as capable, and you have their back and believe in them. I mean, their world opens up like you can't believe. And my kid 3 years ago would have never ever imagined playing organized sports and going to a school like he's going to next year, Mount Carmel. And I mean, he's like a totally different person now. He has this whole new outlook on life. He's got, this hope, and, it's just unbelievable. And if I can do it, anybody can do it. Literally anybody can do it.
Don't sell yourself too short, Don.
No, I'm serious.
But anybody can. That is the point. And sometimes we put these walls up or barriers up for ourselves, and we do it with many things in life, and it's normal, right? When you think about being a big, it kind of satisfies, you kind of daydream, I want to hang out with this kid, and it does feed that part, like you've done it. And so that's why I said there's just consistency in these opportunities to share the message that we understand that, right? We're not shaming anybody. We understand that it takes a process, but what we're here to say is throw your hat in the ring, right? It's we can't stand on the sidelines anymore. It's time to get in a game. If you're paying attention to anything, right? We are. There's a state of emergency with our young people, right? We just had another young person. When you have babies killing babies,
and you're becoming desensitized to it. Like it's like, oh well, that's what happens now. It's not shocking to hear a person that young do this or do that, and that's a problem.
It's a problem, and it's an adult problem.
Yeah.
By the way, because kids left unnurtured properly, and it's easy. We just go to the parent.
Yeah.
Parent. I'm a parent. Your children are influenced by so many more people than you. When they hit, especially that middle school on, to think it's just the parent, it's not. That's where I mentioned that ecosystem. We rely that all these other people that our young people are influenced by, that they're the right people. And what I mean by that positive, caring, have the best interest. That's not always the case. And when we don't pay attention to that trauma, all those things left unattended to, almost always ends in violence. Yeah. Whether it's inner city, whether it's suburban, or these mass incidents that we see, it's right there. We see it time and time again. So the point is, we as adults have an opportunity to get in our young people's lives and be that positive influence, just letting them know, yes, there are people that care about you. Look at all these things that are out there for you. That little perspective change means a lot. And I think of one big brother in particular who said, I can't do anything about all the stuff happening in Chicago, but I can in this one life. And if you do that, enough people over time, you're going to see less and less of the things that we see. It's just a reality.
Yeah. No, that's a great way to put it. Yeah, do your part. And I plan on getting back into it too, so I don't want to sound like a big phony on this show right now. I understand that as well, but
it was awesome when I first met Jeremy. He came by Uproar and he was like, I just want to sit and pick your brain. And he was like, I love Barstool, I love Eddie. Like, I actually talked with Eddie a few years ago, and I was like, about what? And he was like, oh, Eddie volunteered for a while. I had no clue.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. He was in the program. He did site-based. And I texted you right after, and I was like, I had no idea you did that. And you were like, yeah, I feel bad. I got to get back into it. So
yeah,
I always knew you were a good dude.
Yeah, it's just like you said, Dante. To me, it was like knowing how impactful adults have been. Whether my parents, my sisters, my aunts, my uncles, my coaches, how much they've meant to me and how much they've put a dent and put me on the right path. Like, the fact that you could think that people don't have that is heartbreaking. It's truly heartbreaking to think that someone doesn't have someone like that. And just growing up here, born and raised in Chicago, I was like, you really just want to do something for your city. I love this place. I think it's the best. And
dude, not only do these kids nowadays not have that, they also have this entire other heap of shit that we never had to worry about. Social media and online bullying and constantly seeing what everybody else has that they don't have, and the flexing, and just the online bullying and shit. We never had to deal with that. So imagine, first off, not only having positive influence, but also having all this other outside stuff. I can't even imagine what it's like growing up today. I can't even imagine what it's like for these kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a great point, and it's time that I've been having this discussion ad nauseum now with all this just senseless stuff happening. Of, think about it. So the brain doesn't develop fully until you're in your early 20s. I think it's 22 or 24. You can fact check that, but I'm almost positive it's early 20s, right?
That makes a lot of sense.
So kids,
if that's true.
No, it is true, right? It's probably later for guys. But then you get these phones, right? And our young people are consuming information that they physically cannot make sense of. It's too much. And it leads to trauma too, because, trauma, it's a spectrum, right? There's levels to it. So just because you weren't one at the school, you're consuming that. and you consume it over time. A young person physically can't make sense of it. Stress, anxiety. Now add on all the other stuff that you're told you should have. It just keeps compiling, and left unattended, you're seeing what happens with it. And we just did a whole staff trauma training all day. And the two things, and I love just gathering data and research. The two things, you can't take trauma away. The two things you do to combat childhood trauma in particular. One, a positive, caring adult in addition to the family that somebody can confide in. Number one, big brothers, big sisters, right? Number two, positive childhood experiences. The ball games, going out for a burger. We may minimize, it's going out for a burger. That's a positive childhood experience. So you have these relationships and you keep stacking positive childhood experiences. That's the only way, and this is from researchers, this is the only way you can combat the negative effects of trauma for a young person. So this isn't lip service. This is why we keep saying, get in the game, because that's how you do that, right? They have this extension of the family, somebody that shows up, keep showing them they care about them, and you do these positive things. So it's less and less the stuff you're reading or you're seeing in your block, your neighborhood, or divorce happens in your family, right? There's all forms of trauma. That's the only way. And so, if nothing else, just listen and pay attention to that. So you have an understanding of because trauma's thrown out there, right? It's thrown out there all the time, but just so you have some context, this is really the only thing you can do about it. We should be doing things to lessen it, right? But we have an opportunity to get in a young person's life to lessen the negative impacts, because you're so right, Dante. I don't know what all of our ages, I'm 47. Man, the decisions they have to make and all that information that you're not capable of understanding, it's every day. And it just creates all these anxieties and pressures that frankly, we know nothing about.
I mean, adults right now don't know how to think about a lot of things because of social media and stuff. Imagine a kid, you're right. Yeah, man.
That's why I purposely look, that's why, Instagram's probably the one I'm on the most, because I look, it's Big Brothers, Big Sisters. Our team does a great job. And I tell everybody that if nothing else, follow at BBBS Shy. If you want to feel good before you go to bed, you look at it. And that's what I love about it. Close the night looking at it, because it's going to feature a match story. Some positive, caring Chicagoan that's in this young person's life. And they're just showing examples of doing these fun things together out in the community. And it kind of restores you. Okay, there's far more good people than there are negative.
Yep.
And we have to remind ourselves of that. And that's what today is about too, is highlighting that. We have two examples here of gentlemen that have leaned in. The reality is we need more. And we know there's more individuals out there that could do this. And we just need to leverage this platform to do that.
You're right, man. I'm so tired of having the conversation with someone, be like, oh, the city's going to crap, and they don't want to do anything. They just want to move away and they just want to block it out. No one wants to help. And it's just, how often do you get that now? It's like, oh, I can't wait to go here. I can't wait to go here. Like it's just, it's tough to hear. Like when did people stop really fighting, and just, you got to fight for these, fight for the city and fight for the kids. So,
what's a child's life worth? What's a child's future worth? It's not worth our time. So we all probably get it on our phones. Once a week it tells us how much time we spend on our phones, right? Screen time.
Yep.
We have the time. It's what it is. What's our children's future worth to us as adults? Because it's not the children's fault ever. It's our responsibility as caring adults. That's the village. We hear village all the time. That's what the village concept means. We're all a part of that village. And we have to understand that. That's why, Charles Barkley back in the day said, I'm not a role model. Well, I got news for you. None of us chooses what the child sees in us. They see it. They choose us as a role model. And my point isn't to shame Charles Barkley. I actually love Charles Barkley. It's to understand that young people pay attention to us. So our words, our actions matter, because
everything.
We don't get to choose. We don't get to choose who's watching us. That's the point. But here you do get to choose to who you're going to lean in with in a deeper way, because that in and of itself sends a signal to all other people that others care.
they're like sponges, man. And my little's not even that young, but this is another thing. It's just like, so we love going out to eat, and I love bringing him places that, he's never heard of or never tried this kind of food before or whatever, and getting him to try it and watching like him be like, like, holy cow. But he'd never been to a sit-down restaurant before, which is like, we went out to eat when I was a kid for like special occasions. It was never a thing. My mom like always cooked, but when we did, I knew enough about it. Like, he had no concept of just anything, and it was literally like walking him through like, okay, you order this first, and they're going to bring this out, and then they're going to take this away. And you're like, well, I still want to eat that. Oh, we can get that to go. What do you mean you can get that to go? The whole thing. So now we're at the point where I've not trained him, but I've showed him, how to interact with the waitress. I've been like, you order for me. And I've given him the bill at the end and been, I'm paying, but I've told him, like, this is how you total up everything. This is how you tip. This is the math you do. And, last time we went out to eat, the check came and he, like, took it over and, like, filled it out. And I was like, oh, you're paying? He was like, no, give me your card. He's like, I'm just doing the work.
Smart kid. Way to go, Trey.
But yeah, but like stuff like that, just stuff that is like so everyday ordinary to us is like huge. Like I don't know. It's just weird seeing stuff like that and the difference it is for some people that we take for granted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we tend, I think, to just we overthink so many things, right? First off, the solution to most challenges we have, it's people. People helping people. Because systems don't create themselves, right? They're always created by people. And so we, people, are always the solution. And in most of the cases, right, it's the adults that have to lean in to show these little things. I love that story because it goes back to, it's those little moments that it's not about us. It's about that positive experience that his little brother had. And who knows what that is, that confidence that goes along with that. He's able to talk about it. But again, that's just stacking those positive experiences that every child needs, but particularly children who are just faced with so much negativity. It's even more critical they have those moments because you just can't stem the other stuff. And that's the unique opportunity we have.
Yeah.
And we've said it, many times here is, this is it. We're not the only solution, but we are a solution. And if you're really thinking about what can I do, this is it. And it doesn't hurt your heart though that people just, when people stop and just, I'm going to leave, because this doesn't go away, right? It's only going to get worse if you leave. But if you stay and you do something you care about in your community, and especially if we care about our
the thing that sucks the most from me is seeing like good, valuable people leave. We're not just seeing like faceless statistics, like population leave. I'm seeing big people, business owners, people that, employed hundreds of people that really influenced the culture in the city and what made Chicago, leaving, just throwing in the towel and, heading to Florida, heading to Texas. That's like what really has bothered me is, times get tough and, you just pack up and take the easy road. That's like what's been really disheartening to me, and not to get into politics or anything, but it's like, that's one of the things that I don't think the city is really realizing just how devastating those losses are. Is once those people leave, you can't get them back. You have to cultivate and grow that kind of passion for the city again, for people that want to grow up here and plant roots here and start families here and start businesses here. Like, you have to cultivate that. So where the hell is that going to come from the way things are going right now? That's what scares me about this future.
And yeah, Jeremy, thanks for coming on. I think you gave the people a lot of good stuff to chew on here and digest and whatnot. Is there anything else? That the 2 ways was really impactful to me, just hearing that from you about experiences and is there anything else here that we didn't get out?
Listen, I mean, we're always facing challenges. What Dante had mentioned is just I want to remind people, right? That most people are good. There's a lot of positivity about this beautiful city, and the people that make up the neighborhoods, the suburbs, and we have an opportunity to restore some of the things that we're seeing, and you do that by getting involved right in your community and young people's life. The other thing I'd like to say too is, and Dante, you and I have talked about this, is more opportunities like this, and this is my call and challenge to some of our professional athletes in town, just to join us. We're not talking about philanthropy, we're talking about your platform. Men, especially men of color, who we have our greatest need are matching boys on our south and west side. That's where the greatest concentration of need is. So we need more men and male influences, positive male influences, to keep recruiting other positive male influences to be a part of our young men's lives. And our professional athletes are uniquely positioned,
big time,
right, to just join us in being ambassadors. Right, and some of them are actually former and alumni bigs themselves. Some of them are alumni littles. Mm-hmm. They're there, and so that's my call to action to our professional athletes in the city, is join us in this. Right, it's doing things just like this.
And you're not asking these guys to sign up and dedicate 4 hours a month. You're talking about getting a group of littles together and coming to watch a practice, or speaking to them for 15 minutes, or surprising them at one of these site-based things. I mean, like little things that will literally change these kids' lives.
Yep, that's it.
And we get a lot of athletes here that listen to this stuff. I know you're really tight with the Bears organization. I know you're tight with the Bears organization. I think they have a lot of work to do in getting more involved with the community. I would love to see them step up and really take things on this year. Speaking of the Bears, why don't you plug the event that I sadly had to miss this year?
Our tailgate event?
Yeah, Eddie, yeah. We're gonna, as a group, as a company, Barstool Chicago is 100% coming next year, but why don't you plug that and see if we can get it on people's calendars nice and early.
Yeah, it'll be in the fall again this year. We're still working with Soldier Field on the date. So we have an annual tailgate event, and it's a big party. You show up and wear your favorite sports team or college alma mater gear. So it's nothing where you're going out and spend a ton of money to dress up. You show up in a hoodie. We have a good time at Soldier Field in the United Club, live music, lots of opportunity to support Big Brothers Big Sisters. It's just a fun, feel-good event. Everything goes to creating more life-changing relationships and supporting it. And yeah, I'd appreciate Barstool. It'd be awesome to have Barstool Chicago be a visible sponsor and get some folks out. And that's a great way to athletes to lean in and be a part of that as well. And I do have to give a shout out to Eddie Jackson, because Eddie did step up. He was an ambassador for Big Brothers Big Sisters. We have the big draft every year with the NFL. Mm-hmm. And so Eddie did a video vignette of calling on people to be mentors. And I look forward to continuing to work with him and his folks to just continue to lean in. That's what it takes, is use these platforms, show up to these different events, promote them, because at the end of the day, it all goes back to supporting our young people in our communities.
That's awesome. Good on that. And obviously, where could people listening, what's the call to action here? What's the website? How do you get in the process?
Yep, so the website is BBBSCHGO.org. So that's where you go. You'll find everything. You'll be able to go in and volunteer, and you'll be able to get information too without talking to anybody. You can digest what's site-based, what's community-based, what's right for me, and then it's a click of a button to get things rolling. It's pretty easy to get it started, and we'll take it from there. But yeah, you can visit the website. That's the best place to start.
BBBS, not to be confused with Big Baller Brand. Was that ever a thing?
And for a minute, maybe.
Yeah. How about that? LeVar Ball.
Although big fan of Lonzo, hopefully he heals up and gets back.
Right.
With the Bulls, and we'll make a deep playoff run with him at the point.
For real, I hope so. Jeremy Foster, thank you so much for coming in. This was an awesome conversation, man. Thanks for everything you do, and pushing this forward. And then I assume also most cities have a Big Brother component because this is a national show. I want to make sure that they'll be able to go wherever they
100%. Any big city in the country, you have a Big Brothers Big Sisters, and in their smaller communities too. So you can go into just BBBS.org, put in a zip code, it'll show you your local. Who's closest to you. And it's funny you say that because I got calls too saying, hey, you got this guy at Barstool, he wrote this blog. So I was getting calls from Boston and Dallas and Houston. And so, people do pay attention, as you mentioned, across not only the country but the globe that pay attention to this. So you do have an opportunity to impact your community, inside here in Chicago or in other communities where Big Brothers Big Sisters are.
Awesome. Well,
and I'm telling you, the last thing I will say, you will get more out of this than the kid, and the kid gets a ton out of it, but you get more out of it than you could ever imagine.
Thank you, Dante.
There you go. Thanks, Dante. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. That's it for today. That's it for this week. We'll see you all on Monday.